And in terms of some of the backroom manoeuvres, we know that during some of the machinations, some people have talked about being frightened of having you as leader. Why do you think that's the case?
I don't know. You know, for me, what I really wanted to do was an honourable campaign that talked about the great future I think we can have outside of the EU and my desire to take us forward. I'm really not interested in other people's kind of tactics or whatever. I just want an honourable campaign.
But do you feel that there has been a sort of operation to stop you? Many of your colleagues have talked about Stop Leadsom. We saw that in an extraordinary text message that emerged last night. That is going on amongst your colleagues. Again,
you know, I'm not interested in that. It doesn't bother me because it's just not, it's not honourable. So, you know, to me, I think what people want in this country is somebody that says what they mean, means what they say, acts with integrity. I think that's what people want. And so, you know, that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm not really interested in anything else.
Are you disappointed, though, about how quickly this race has turned into the usual sort of backroom plotting, attempts to push and shove people's loyalties around?
Yes, of course I am. Yeah, I mean, it is disappointing. And, you know, one of the things I would hope to do as Prime Minister would be to change that from the top, you know, by setting an example, if I can say that.
In terms of then of setting that example, there has been confusion about your career before you came into Parliament. Some people have suggested you've tried to mislead people. There's been a suggestion that you changed your CV. Do you want to clarify?
I mean, I've not changed my CV. I have had 25 years in finance. I spent the best part of 10 years in BZW and Barclays and the best part of 10 years in Invesco Perpetual. Those are the two longest periods I spent anywhere. In between times, I set up a funds management company. I started life as a trainee broker on the London Metals Exchange, working for a big American brokerage firm. By the way, I've also had a part-time job in Sainsbury's. I started life as a 14-year-old silver service waitress, and I ran for a summer a restaurant in a hotel. So, you know, my CV is incredibly varied, and it's all absolutely true. And, you know, I think this is, you know, ridiculous. You know, my CV is exactly as I've set it out.
But one of your former colleagues claims that you changed your title from Chief Investment Officer to Senior Investment Officer. Very different jobs, one responsible for hundreds of millions of pounds, one a very different role. There's also a suggestion that you said you were the Managing Director of an investment fund, the Managing Director of Future and Fund Management. Companies House suggests you were the Marketing Director. Now, are those claims that you've altered or maybe slightly embellished your experience wrong? Or would you like to clarify?
Yeah, I would like to clarify. Yes, I was Managing Director of the Future and Fund Management. It was a start-up funds management company, and I was Managing Director. And what was the other one? The Senior Investment Officer. I was always very clear. I was Senior Investment Officer, working very closely with the Chief Investment Officer. I've been very clear. I am not a funds manager. I was in Barclays and BZW managing huge teams of people and large budgets and responsible for the trading relationships. Well, you know, to be very careful not to mislead, Barclays is a very big player in the large corporate and institutional banking world, or it was when I was there a long time ago now. And so the trading relationships are enormous, billions and billions and billions of pounds. So when I was there as the Financial Institutions Director responsible for UK banking relationships, the responsibility was for billions of pounds of trading lines and facilities to those companies.
But to be completely clear, and forgive me for going into detail, but it's very important, you were managing relationships rather than the money itself.
Because yes, I've never been a fund manager. I've never said I was a fund manager, and I have never been a fund manager.
You see, some of the people supporting you in this campaign, Penny Mordaunt, Bernard Jenkin, have gone on the record and said one of your great strengths is that you do have experience managing billions of pounds.
No, but that's correct, because that is in my roles, the budgets that the business is responsible for. So I think there's a misunderstanding here. If you are a fund manager, you are deciding investment decisions, which stocks to buy, when in fact the owners of those funds are people who've got their pensions or their ISAs, their life savings and so on tied up in funds that you as a fund manager are then managing. But the business itself, so whether it's Invesco Perpetual or Barclays, it has a budget for what it is spending on developing those relationships, travelling to see clients, supporting product development, paying the staff in the team and so on. And then of course in banking you also have massive trading lines and exposures to different clients. So there's different aspects of it. And so none of my colleagues have misrepresented that I was managing investments on behalf of pensioners and savers. I was not a fund manager. I've been very clear. I've worked in the markets, I have worked in banking, I have worked in funds management as Senior Investment Officer and Head of Corporate Governance, working very closely with the Chief Investment Officer.
So you don't regret at all how your previous experience has been presented?
Well, that's a sort of slightly odd question. My CV as I've presented it is exactly accurate. So there's nothing to regret. You know, my CV is accurate, that I've absolutely set out the jobs that I've done. But as I say, you know, I missed out my job at the weekend in Sainsbury's. So, you know, I mean, I can understand people saying, well, you haven't done this, you haven't said that, but I mean, where do you stop? You know, I could add all manner of work experience and so on if that was helpful.
Why won't you publish your tax return yet?
So I've been very clear. This is about protecting my colleagues. So I genuinely think that MPs are subject to often too much pressure to put out every single bit about their private lives.
But you want to be Prime Minister.
Yes, but that's very different. You see, if I'm in the final two...
That's the point.
Yes, no, exactly. And if I'm in the final two, I've made very clear I will be very happy and I will immediately publish my tax returns. But this is a point of principle. I don't think that the fact that somebody wants to stand for a position means that they should immediately allow people access to everything about them. So this is a point of principle. What I would add is my tax returns are actually extremely boring. So it's going to be a big disappointment if I get the opportunity tomorrow to publish them, but nevertheless it is a point of principle.
But did you use a Jersey branch of an investment bank to borrow against the value of some property that you had?
So I had a mortgage which I shopped around for the cheapest deal, and at the time it was being offered by a bank, a UK bank, who booked it to Jersey. Now, the same way, Laura, if you buy a book from Amazon, you might find it's booked in Luxembourg. That doesn't make you a tax avoider, and it doesn't mean that you did it deliberately. Okay, so I think let's just be clear about this. They booked it in, I think it was Jersey, and then subsequently they decided to book it in London. And so, you know, that I think is the story.
Why do you think, for our members of our audience who might not be familiar with you yet, as simply as you can, why do you think you're the right person for the job?
I mean, I am a real optimist. I really believe that our best years lie ahead of us, and that in leaving the EU we can really make a success of our country. You know, we have so much going for us. We're one of the world's biggest economies. You know, we speak the world's international business language. We've got historic trading links right across the world. So I'm a huge optimist, and I believe we need to seize that and make the most of the opportunities.
And you said at your rally this morning you believed in prosperity, not austerity. Were you suggesting that you would slow down the government's current planned reductions in public spending?
I'm completely committed to the need to get rid of our deficit. There's no doubt about that. You know, I mean, we absolutely have to get our house in order. But for me, what we need is a great deal of fiscal stimulus to make sure that we show that the UK is open for business, that we attract foreign direct investment, that we give businesses certainty about the opportunities that there are to invest, that we invest in UK skills, so we upskill our workforce and so on. So in that regard, I'm very much in tune with the work that our Chancellor is already doing.
But you've just said you'd argue for a fiscal stimulus, so would you borrow now to invest to help the economy through what might be a bumpy time as we leave the EU?
Specific policy decisions would be absolutely necessary to promote the UK. Now, it's not necessarily borrowing more, or you know, or changing our actual current account status, but what it will be about is negotiating free trade, being seen to be negotiating with other countries around the world with fast-growing economies to make sure that we can seize the opportunities. It will be about giving certainty about our negotiations with the EU to make sure that we have the clearest signs for business that the UK is absolutely fine, that our economy and our fundamentals are still strong.
But you did suggest there that you might argue for a fiscal stimulus, and that does mean potentially, not necessarily, but potentially borrowing more in order to invest.
Potentially, but I'm not making specific policy commitments here.
In terms of a couple of other policies, just quickly, would you approve the expansion of the runways at Heathrow?
I think we need a very early decision. I think part of the whole agenda of being open for business is about making sure that people can get here and also get there. So yes, we need an early decision, so that would be my top priority. But again, I'm not making a commitment here and now.
So whichever it would be, you've got to get on with it?
Yes.
What about the Trident vote? So Theresa May has committed to holding a vote on renewing the nuclear deterrent this summer. Will you do that too?
I mean, I came into politics because of a real childhood concern about the Cold War. And so to me, the importance of the nuclear deterrent is actually sort of really ingrained in me. And so, again, I don't want to make a policy commitment as to which date I would be doing this, but I do want to be very clear. I see our nuclear deterrent as absolutely core insurance for our national security.
And finally, if I may, becoming Prime Minister is about your whole life.
Yeah.
And that includes also your family life. If I can ask, what do your family think about you running for the most important job in the country?
So my family are incredibly supportive. I have a very close, enormous family, and they're all incredibly supportive. My two elder sons are completely excited about it. My husband's been totally brilliant. I have a much younger daughter who's, just a bit more nervous about it, but generally I think we're all in a good place.
And how difficult was it to decide to run?
It's very difficult. It's a huge decision, and at the end of the day, I feel, having played a part in showing this country the prospects for us outside of the EU, I just felt I needed to put myself forward to offer to lead the way through it, because I really believe in it. So that's what I'm doing is, I really do feel a sense of responsibility and a desire to see it through, and that's what's driving me.
Andrea Leadsom, thank you very much.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.